Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, byaibo, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to SheCentre, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _SheCentre_podcast and follow us on Facebook at the SheCentre Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Hello to you once again. Welcome back, and thank you so much for constantly giving the safe space to the women who have been sharing their stories on the SheCentre podcast. I am really grateful to you, and I'm truly happy to know that you keep coming back to experience more of these stories, and I'm grateful for the feedback. So many people have shared with me how they relate to these stories, and others say it's good that they're giving them a perspective of how other people have lived their lives. I shared in the first episode my episode about my childhood and explained how I had to go to boarding school at a really young age of 7. My sister went, I think, when she was about 7 as well. And it's something that I've always struggled with because of the experiences that I went through while I was in boarding school at such an early age. I went to boarding school until I was 19 years old. Yes. So I think last year, I found this article online, and I was trying to understand, while I was doing research for the project of SheCentre, I was trying to understand the different people out there who are going through boarding school. So I went into Google Scholar and typed in boarding school experiences. I was surprised to find an article from the UK, which truly spoke so much about my life. In this article, their title is An Identity Process Theory Account of the Impact of Boarding School on Sense of Self and Mental Health. The data was analyzed into themes. There were 4 themes that came up. One is the initial experience of being left at school, the coping strategies, the limits of coping, and fundamental change, that is the making of me as an individual. And that was explained to mean the sense that participants have of themselves as adults as a result of their time at boarding school. I don't want to go so deep into each and every one of the themes, but I just want to pick out a few things. In the coping strategies, there is the intrapsychic coping strategies, the interpersonal coping strategies, and intergroup coping strategies. The participants explained that they found that they had denial. They had a split self, which means that they took on other new identities, and others just coped by accepting what was going on. And in their interpersonal coping strategies, we have compliance and obedience, rebellion, cruelty, and also that is intergroup coping strategies. And some of the limits of coping were at school. So many people kind of got amnesia. They forgot so many things that happened to them because of the memory that was so bad. And then some of them felt like they had lost their adolescence. And in the fundamental change, most of them felt like they had lost their identity. They also lacked self-knowledge, which meant that awareness of the perception of others replaced their self-evaluation of themselves. And also, one respondent said, I can adapt very quickly into other people's situations. That is me. Like, I adapt so easily. That's something that I'm trying to deal with right now. And yeah, why am I mentioning all this research and stuff? It's because today I have a guest that I have on the show, and she's an author of a book called Boarding Blues: Why Boarding Primary School May Not Be Good for Your Child. Her name is Mrs. Elizabeth Businge Ntozi. In this conversation, we talked about some of the things that she wrote in the book. You might want to grab it to read about this and learn about some of these experiences. She talked about selfishness, feeling like, you're overprotective over your property, that some of the things that she went through while in boarding school. And then she talked about unfair punishments like beating for unnecessary reasons, memory gaps, the controlled narrative, which is controlled by the caretakers in the school, and then how the environment is so poor in some schools that it in her case it impacted her performance. And yeah, she also shares about how her faith has helped her to heal from the past that she went through, and she's kind of like in a better space, and the fact that she also changed school. Now, this is not to say that all boarding schools are terrible, blah, blah, blah. No, it's basically what her book is about, or what we talked about in this space, is the experience of children who are under the age of 10. It's quite a critical age in this stage for many children. Yeah, I don't want to say much about this, so I will introduce you to our guest right now, and you can get into the conversation. Hi, Mrs. Ntozi. How are you?
Hello, Mrs. Agava. I'm very good.
Thank you
I'm
so
very
much
good.
thank you so much for making the time to share your lovely experience with us.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you shortly before before I started recording, that the first time, that was last year, I always thought, when you're going through boarding school and everyone around you is probably in the same boat, you never really see the trauma or anything because it's the normal norm in Uganda. It's like, all of us went through it. So when you try to tell someone this was so traumatic, they'll just be like, what? I went through the same thing. And you can all just laugh about it and move on until someone writes a book or someone records something and reflects on how everything impacted them. And that's when your perspective changes about everything that you went through. Something that you thought was normal now becomes, wait, this shouldn't have happened to me. That's what I felt when I read your book, by the way. I was like, this is exactly what I went through. Luckily for you, you got out when you were still younger. I stayed until I was 17. So actually until 19 when I finished my senior 6. So just a short introduction about yourself. I know that normally I start out by asking, tell us about your life growing up, how it impacted your life, how you see life, the person you've become right now. But your book is kind of a summary of all that. So I'll just tell you to kind of start from where you are right now. Introduce yourself to us and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can dig deep into this trauma that we call boarding school life. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rusty, for having me here. Elizabeth Ntozi. I'm married to Arthur Ntozi, and we work together with my husband. So that's another story, having to work together with your husband. That's also an interesting thing. But in this season, life is okay. Life is good. We work together. We do lots of things together. We do more. We're into the health services. So we have a pharmacy. We've just opened a clinic in Mbarara. So we have a lot of things happening. Then we have a farm that we have to coordinate still in Mbarara. And so that keeps us busy. Basically, that's it.
Okay.
about
Okay.
my work life.
Okay, that's good. So I will kind of drag you into the past. Just tell us your experience. Everyone has their own experience, I do believe. You could start from how your book starts. You said first you were going to a day school and then you moved into boarding school. First of all, how was the transition? Are you still mad at your parents?
Not really,
No,
not really.
I'm joking about it. I'm joking about it,
Yeah.
but I always tell my mom I can't be mad at you because you did the best that you could. That was the only option that you had at the moment. But when you look back in that moment of, oh, I went through this, you're like, I wish my parents could really have experienced it or maybe could have seen it from my perspective. So tell us a little bit, or maybe just build for us the story of your book. Tell us about your childhood experience from boarding school and maybe what drove you to write this book.
Okay. So at a very young age, I moved from a day school into a boarding school. And there's nothing wrong with going to a boarding school.
Yes, yes.
There's some boarding schools are so good. You hear stories where people had a very nice time.
Yeah.
But then some, the stories are different. And it's not just for a few individuals, it's across the board. So many people
Yeah.
have had very bad experiences from school. So how I came to write my book, I didn't know how much it had affected me until I got married. So with my husband, once in a while, I'll get memories that I had long forgotten that happened to me. So I'll tell him out of the blue, can you believe this happened to me while I was in boarding school? Then we laugh about it. Then, can you believe? So over and over, there were those moments of, can you believe this happened? Can you believe they did this to us? Can you believe? So eventually, when my husband and I joined Harvest Institute, School of Leadership, it's a space offered by Worship Harvest, a church that we go to, that enables people to tell their stories. Because each one of us has a story to tell.
Definitely.
It's just, we've just not had the opportunity to say it, to tell it out. So when I go there, and indeed, I'm like, okay, the assignment, the whole year assignment was to come out with a book. You have to write a book. And so you're trained on how to write the book, how to figure out what to write about, how to outline the book. And so it helped. But I didn't know what I was going to write about until, as I was thinking about it, in fact, I thought I'd write a fiction story, something, something out of the blue, but really nice. But then I started struggling with that. I didn't know how to start that. I'm like, no. Eventually, the fact that I was constantly having memories of what happened to me in school.
Yeah.
So I decided on writing about boarding blues, experiences that young children face when they're in school. So that's how the book came about. And indeed, when I started the book, oh my God, I could not stop writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything that I had forgotten, everything, like the mind is so powerful. Everything that was hidden started rushing back, in detail. This is what happened. When I joined my P1, my primary 2, my primary 3, these are the steps. This is what I experienced for those 3.5 years in that school. It was unbelievable that the mind can keep so much, and given the opportunity, so much, it will recall in detail what actually happened to you. So that's how the book came about.
Yes, that's very true. And people usually say, that person is young, they will forget. In the younger years, I was reading this book. I mentioned on my podcast that I was reading this book from Oprah Winfrey called "What Happened to You," and they're mostly focusing on children from 0 to 5 years old. And what they tell parents is what happens in these years is very significant to a child's life.
Memory.
Exactly, the memory. Yeah. They can affect who they become and what kind of what kind of person they will be to impact their lives and the lives of other people. So what you're saying is really true to that, because what we think has been hidden comes out sometimes, like it's triggered. It comes out in certain
Yes.
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 Okay. So
And it's unbelievable because when I started and things were just pouring out of my head. So it was in a way therapy for the experiences I'd gone through and long forgotten until that particular season when they started coming out. So I could not stop. I just wrote. I would have to write. I had so much to write, to a point whereby it was as if I was simply ranting. This happened to me. That happened to me.
Yes,
It was unfair. Why
like
did
a
that
genre,
happen? Yeah.
Yes.
But I had a very good editor. He had to sit me down and he told me, hey, the ranting will not help you. The ranting won't help the situation. You're writing a book to help other people.
Yes.
It's not about you. This book is
Yes.
supposed to help someone out
How
there.
you
So
tell your story can really
impact so
others,
what's your target market? Who is going to read this book? Who is going to benefit? Because so many people have had these experiences. So what's unique about your story? So I had to rethink, yes, put the stories in there, but with the aim of changing someone's decision-making process, As a young parent, having the knowledge of what happens in these schools or having experienced it yourself, how then can you change the narrative for your child?
Very true.
Because you may still have to send the child to boarding school, but how would you make the experience better for them than it was for you? So that's what happened.
I love that. I really love that.
I had to make the book now resonate to not just me, but to other people, and for the book to be beneficial to especially young parents when you're making that decision of where to take your child. Some people take their children as young as 3 to boarding school. So think through these decisions that we are making as parents.
Yeah. And what we expect also from someone who has gone through something. Yes. I really like that. Yeah.
But even our participation as the parents, because if our parents, in our years, our parents weren't involved in the activities at school, the school simply dictated what should happen to the child in their premises. But now things have changed. The parent can actually go and recommend and suggest some things that can make the child's experience better.
Yeah. That's very true. I would just shortly, before you tell us in detail some of the things that happened, like you said in the beginning, boarding school experiences are completely different. And also, 2 people can go to the same school and come out completely different.
Very true.
Because like you said, first of all, young parents might be in that state where they're like, okay, I'm just doing the best that I can. But an older parent might think through it and say, okay, I know I don't really have to take my child to boarding school, but it's the only option. But these are other steps that I'm going to take. And it's very important because I went to school with so many people, and sometimes I'm ranting like you about some of the things that I went through. But for them, they don't really see it as bad because maybe their parents intervened somewhere along the way. It could also be the same for my case. I'm sure there are so many people who went through the same experiences that I went through, but their experience is worse off than mine, maybe because they didn't have a parent who intervened in these situations in the middle. So tell us, we've talked so much about experiences. Tell us some of the terrible experiences. Let's reflect together, because for me, I love the fact that your editor really told you to focus on the person out there, because first of all, it's not only therapeutic. I always like to say, Chimamanda said, everyone's story is potentially universal. When your book is read by someone, interestingly, I will tell you, I thought this is just an African thing. And I went into Google Scholar and Googled boarding school experiences. You won't believe it. UK came up. It was like a qualitative study with thematic explanations, how they analyze their data. You will not believe that this paper that I read was explaining everything that we got through in boarding school. The kids are coming out and saying, I am like this because in boarding school this happened. In boarding school, this was denied to me. My parents, I felt like they had neglected me. There was a lot of trauma that I saw in this paper. I was like, oh my God, it's exactly what Elizabeth wrote about. But this is someone who is in a different schools, in a different country, in a first world country. So that's how international or universal your story can be, when you don't just see it through your perspective, but you say, okay, I'm going to get my story and write about how it can impact other people. So tell us some of these experiences, reflect back on some of these things. Maybe you can pick on those that you can see may have impacted your life right now, good or bad, because even some bad experiences are really good sometimes when you look back in hindsight. Yeah.
For me, I would say it's the selfishness that is slowly, I don't even know how to describe it. The child, because of what is happening around the child, they become very protective of their property, of themselves. And so there is an element of selfishness that will be observed by those around them. And I didn't know this until I joined my family, because I'd been in boarding school for those years, and you had to keep your things. If your things were stolen from you, you suffered. If your toothpaste is taken, if your toothbrush is taken, small things that will make life so miserable. If your Benson is taken, you're going to delay to attend class. You're going to be punished for that, without that teacher understanding what the child is actually going through. If your uniform is not submitted in time, it won't be washed, so you won't be. There is a time, imagine this, I was in P2 or P1, and a teacher chased me out of class for having a dirty uniform. I'm like, and until I was able to think through it, then it's a memory I had long forgotten. So I kept on bouncing from class to dormitory. The matron could not help me because there's no extra uniform. The uniforms had been taken to be washed by the older students. So I literally had nothing. She could not help me. And each time I would get to class, the teacher didn't want me in the class as lessons were happening. So I was rotating. I was not in class. Yes, until it's a story that I write about in the book, until the teacher on duty found me just simply rotating, because I would go to class, I would be sent back to the dormitory, I'm sent back to class to explain what's wrong and why I can't change the uniform, until one of the teachers on duty found me, and I explained, and this is a 6-7-year-old having to explain what is going on in that moment. And the teacher on duty thankfully understood, because she was my teacher of another subject. So she takes me back to the teacher that is tossing me around, and I'm literally allowed back in class, but I'm not really wanted there. And I have no control of that at that age. I don't know what to do about it. And my parents are nowhere to intervene in that pain. You get it? Then the unfair punishments. Some punishments would not make sense, The child has no control of what is happening around them, but the teachers are not even willing to understand why the child is in that state. And so what rules is the cane. You're caned to put you in line, to make you think faster. Think fast, such that you don't end up being caned. And so, in a way, a childhood is taken away from this individual who is going to later on be an adult, but face challenges of having missed their childhood. So in the book, I talk about some of the effects of some of the experiences we go through on us as adults, because you've been away from the family setting, one of them being you're away from the family setting, so you don't learn from your father and mother how to nurture, how to nurture the way they are doing it with your siblings, the way they are doing it with your cousins. So you end up with an adult that has gaps in the memory of what do I do with this? How do I relate with that one? Because of the gaps that started when the child was young. Yes, those are some of the problems, I guess, that I faced in school.
Yeah, you've really brought up so many things that are very. I'm seeing, like, I see in my life. First of all, I usually also tell my husband, like, I would tell him some stories, and he would look at me and be like, I think in his head he's like, this probably is a lie. But for me, because for him, he went to boarding school when he was in secondary school. And I think that's a good age, because at that time, your parent has nurtured you to do some of these things. And for me, unfortunately, I was a careless, stubborn child, and it never really went well with me. Like you said, the selfishness, I do remember vividly. In my school, we were not allowed to take Grab. So that means you have to depend on the porridge that you take in the morning, wait until break time to take a bun, which is your break, and then lunchtime to eat posho and beans. Sometimes you might get some peanuts or some rice. The diet never really changed that much. I guess they were doing the best they could to take care of so many students. But also, and then wait until evening. So in between here, for a child, I joined also when I was 7 years old. This child is hungry. You've come from your home where you can take a snack anytime, and in this case, you can't. So it came to a point where I always make my husband laugh. You would be walking into the dormitory, and people are eating from their bags. People are like literally hiding. So it brings up in you, like you said, this selfish character that makes you not want to share, only because you have so little. And if you dare open it, the whole dormitory is going to come in front of you and say, Sam, which was the song. So you'd find someone is opening a pack of soap just because it sounds like biscuits, and the whole dormitory would run up to this person to say, Sam. So you'd find your people are doing weird things, like eating in the bathroom, eating somewhere while they're hiding. And this is a quality that you might not realize, but later on it might become who you are. And that impacts your whole lifetime. And also your stuff is stolen by elder children. I didn't have shoes. Like, I would lose my shoes at the beginning of the term and find them at the end of the term. And in between there, you have to wait for VD, for your parent to come and bring you shoes, maybe.
Yeah.
And like you said, the teacher doesn't understand that. They don't understand you're a young child. You might lose your stuff, or maybe you're being bullied and someone in class is wearing your shoes, but you can't say anything. But they will chase you out of the class, which affects how you see yourself. So tell us, is this something that when you were writing this book, did it bring you healing? Is it?
Definitely. I wrote the book, and it was a way of releasing bad memories, bad memories that I don't want to put. Sometimes the word trauma is used carelessly, so I don't want to use that. But I had a bad experience in those years, a very, very bad experience.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even up to now, I don't remember the good. So that's the other effect with being in boarding school. You may have memory gaps, because then the mind will focus on the things that have affected you so deeply, that have caused you so much hurt. That's what the mind would focus on. So indeed, if I met a classmate of that same school, same years, and they have a different experience, and they remind me of the good things, maybe I may appreciate that. But I do not remember any good thing. So I wrote the book to release, to find closure from the pain that that was hidden in my mind and in my heart. And it did help. It did help, because you talked about the thing of having to hide what we call grab, the edibles. One very bad experience, because now for me, where I was, the school I was in, they allowed those things. But when the parents left, then they were not allowed. So it was a case of hiding them, the teachers confiscating them, when they themselves saw the things come in.
Yes.
So that was really, really, really very bad, because right now I know they're boarding school, very confusing. They're boarding schools that don't allow it at all. So maybe the parents will leave some money as pocket money with the administration, and the child is then helped on how to spend throughout the period. But that wasn't the case for us. These things came in beginning of term. These things came in at VD, and they were received by our teachers, and they were handed over to us. Then a few weeks later, the same teachers are telling you, you should not have these things. I remember one time, prep time, I had to run my dormitory to pour juice, packed juices that my father had given me on visitation. So I was looking forward to having it last some time. But the rumor was, whoever had grab in their suitcases, they were coming for you. You were going to be punished. You're going to be canned. And I'm like, oh my God. So I ran to the dormitory and literally pour my juice, because I didn't want to be punished. No child deserves to go through that. No. I don't think no child goes through. We don't have to go through that, because as an adult now, I see life is really challenging. There are so many things that come up that you as an adult, you need to solve. So now as a child, to go through that, this was really unnecessary. So some of the things don't make sense. And there is a lack of care, The boarding schools are set up such that the rules have to be obeyed, and whatever the experience is should be equal for all children, for all individuals, for all temperaments. But we are different temperaments, Some may handle something, they may solve a problem quickly, others it may take time. And so boarding schools need to acknowledge that individuality in children, which I don't know now what is happening in boarding schools, but I'm praying and hoping that things have changed, that they can acknowledge that this child is loud, and it's not a bad thing to be loud. That's how they express themselves. This child is quiet. That doesn't mean they are daft. They are simply, that's the way they are. That's their temperament. That's their nature. And then you guide them through the system and control their experiences.
I think that's very true. I believe that system in Uganda, it's general. It might be maybe for some private school where they invest more a lot in research, they might have this individual. I heard there's some international schools now, I don't know, Christian something school, where parents are taking their children now, and this person invested a lot of time in research, try and find out how can we first of all involve parents in the lives of children. Then they give them a goal-based like exercises. Like for instance, what's your goal today? It's not like the whole term. What is the goal today? The goal is to do this, and what is your parents' goal? So you both have to work on it together. I had someone who was going through this with their child, and I was like, I wish I had been given that, because studying is an individual thing in boarding school. You can't go home and have your parent help you with the homework, but at the same time, I think for this one, it is particularly for even day schools, that focus on generalizing all students. Some are poor, some are rich, some are at home, they have a better options for them to study, or that's why maybe they are performing, they are doing coaching, they are doing all these things. And at the end of the day, I don't know if in your school you used to go through this punishment where the results will come back and they start to punish according to how many you failed. Like you go through the whole exam. Number one, who failed this? Up. Number two, who failed this? So at the end of the exam, everyone, first of all, you don't even have to explain. Everyone knows that you didn't perform well, but you might have failed, like in English, just the verb, or it could be a full stop, but that's something that you're paying for. So the education system in general, I heard that they're trying to change it right now, But the education system in general is something that I believe is not individual based, and it's not focusing also on people with disability. Like these days, we know there are kids who are dyslexic. We didn't know that growing up. I first heard this word just a few months ago, like a few years ago, that there are people who are now coming up and saying I'm dyslexic. But in Uganda or in many countries, you study with everyone. No one cares. And also think about this. A child is coming from a home, maybe there are both parents, that the family is broken, maybe they have lost someone during the holidays, or maybe they are dealing with some kind of family issues at home, but they come at school and they're, well, when you're at school, you have to all
it's none of them.
Yeah. So how have you...
the school doesn't care what you're going through.
Exactly.
It's not all about academics, but the general outlook of the school experience. How are they? I believe school should be enjoyable. It should not be something we are simply trying to get rid of, get children to finish and on to the next level. No, I believe each season that the child is going through should be enjoyable. They should have good memories. I wouldn't want my children to have bad memories of school. And I was lucky to change from that bad experience onto still within primary when I changed school, and the experience was better. I was seeing dad and mom more often, I was seeing my sisters more often, and that helped me improve academically. So we need to, I'm aware of the impact of family involvement in the child's education. I would get help at the end of the day as a day scholar at home. If I failed to understand my teacher for one reason or another, I would get help from my cousins around older than me. I would get help from my dad. So learning became better and enjoyable. It was I didn't feel like a failure anymore. While in boarding school, if you didn't understand a topic at that moment it is being taught, you were punished. And that's not how learning goes on. Even as adults, some things we take a long time to understand. Some things we are quick. Some take, So I would like maybe for my nephews and nieces, their experiences to be better. It's not all about the academics. You have to have a balanced life, spiritually, relationally. When a child is in boarding school, they're not going to have those moments with uncles and aunties to impact some wisdom onto them, because they are in school. And when the holidays come, they are very short. There's a time when holidays were just 2 weeks. Things have improved a little. Can be 3 weeks or a month. And the child is able to visit other relatives and bond with them and learn from them. Because learning can happen anywhere, But when a child is in boarding school, all those aspects are cut off. You could learn through a game. All those aspects in boarding school are cut off. You can't. You have to be in class. Everything is laid out for you. At this time, you should be here. In these hours, you should be here. There is no time. If you're found off the program, you're going to be caned. You're going to be punished. So there is in boarding school there is a lack of innovation to say, or a lack of that you cannot innovate as a child while you're in boarding school. That's what I think. While at home, so much is happening around you. Something you found so difficult at school could be made easy for you by a parent or a cousin that has experienced the same thing. So those are some of the challenges that boarding scholars are going through. So when I changed today, the experience was totally, totally different. I don't remember ever being caned as a day scholar for anything. And children were children. There were very naughty boys in the school, and they were never caned. And these were some of the top performers in the school. Children were let to be children. We had a time for play. And this was before Nakazero was turned into something else. People had time for play. And they would scream and shout and run around. then go back to school. Now in a boarding school, you cannot find that.
Oh, you didn't
Screaming
have
around.
time for playing in the school that you went to?
It was probably there, but because I was so stressed out, I don't
Okay, yes,
remember
I
it.
get it. I
I do
get
not
it.
remember
I get
it,
it.
you
I
know?
get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
because
such a huge change in your life that you just blocked it out.
yes, in
Yeah.
boarding school, I was so stressed out. And
Oh.
each time I would go back home for the holidays and I'll tell, I'm a good storyteller. So I'll tell my dad, this is what is happening. This is what is happening. And he would joke about it to make me cope. Turn my problems into jokes.
Yes, yes.
Because that's who he is. Everything is a joke to him. So he would try to help me turn everything into a joke, which for
Yeah.
a moment worked until to himself it was
It
not
was.
working anymore.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, this is not working. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And then I
completely
joined
understand.
boarding again for high school, and I could think for myself. I could defend myself. I could make my own friends.
Was
The
the
experience.
experience in the other school that you went to in secondary school, was it good because the school was good, or because you had this time to learn how to cope with this life?
The school was good.
Okay,
The
that's
school was
good. Yeah.
good. Yeah, the school was very good. They respected students, but also I was now mature enough to understand
Oh yeah.
what
Yeah.
was around me, what was going around, I could control what was around me, which is
Yeah.
not the case for a 6 to
Yeah.
10-year old. What is going around, what's around them is determined by the school administrators, the
Yeah.
teachers, the cooks at the school, the matrons at the school. Those are the ones that control the narrative for a
Yeah.
boarding school child.
Yeah.
While later on in high school, you can tell what's wrong. You can join a group by choice to bully others or not,
Yeah.
or join the good group that is paying attention and
Yes.
excelling
Yes.
academically. You
Yeah.
can make that choice when you're in high school, but when in lower classes of primary, the child is dependent on what is presented to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, if there are cases of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse,
Yeah.
that is the experience of the child. That is the moment that the child is going through. They don't know
Yeah.
how to comprehend or who to tell if the adults are the ones causing them the pain.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Did you, in this time of your primary school time, did you have any extracurricular activities in terms of like sports or any activities that kind of brought together students to play together, maybe like drama? Do you have any of this? Because I know some schools don't really focus on that. They are only education based, while others try to make it a little bit fun sometimes, even if you're in pain.
The school would have to be very, very intentional on such things. As I said, anything good that happened at the school, my mind
don't-
blocked it. I
Okay.
do not remember. Yeah. However, we had sports days. So I think before that day, you have that month where you're training and you're getting together and working together as a team and, anything that you're going to present for drama or sports day. Those were there.
Yeah.
But those were for a particular term, because drama,
Yeah.
that's a particular term.
Yeah,
Then
it's not all
sports,
the
probably a
time.
particular term. So the other terms that don't have those activities,
Yeah.
it was academics.
Academics. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to be in class. You have to be. Oh my God, that is all. And it
Yeah.
didn't work because while I was there, I was not understanding what they were teaching. So I was really, really performing very, very badly.
Yeah.
Very, very badly. And a story I tell in the book is when I would get back home and my younger sister is doing better. And so if you have reckless caretakers at home, they
Yeah.
would,
They might
those comments, you are older, you're daft, you don't understand what is being taught in class, your younger
Yeah.
sister is doing, without
Yeah.
understanding the environment I'm in.
Yeah.
Then until dad got me out of the school, then that's when I could do
Perform better. Yeah.
and perform better.
Yeah. And yes, I'm really, I would say I'm really sorry that your life in school was only for the younger parts. But I think what I would understand for you is I'm glad that your dad took you out, because for so many kids this could really impact the rest of it. Some of us, we stayed and we learned how to cope. I would say when I look back in the years that you're mentioning, P1 to P3, I don't really have, I tried to make memories. I tried to have some memories that were fun about it, but most of the fun memories came a little bit later when I went to
Yes.
the older classes. But that was because I knew I either have to adapt or there's no option. My mom had made it clear I wasn't going to her day school
To
because
live.
she didn't. Yeah, because she didn't have the capacity. Like at home, she couldn't manage to take us every day to school. So she was like, and also I had a sister who was older than me in the same school. So she had she would mentally prepare me. How have you, apart from writing the book, how have you dealt with this painful memories and some of these I like to call them traumatic experiences that could impact the rest of your life, but we can call them anything else. But if when they come up in this older part of your life, where a memory like that comes up and you find yourself in a situation, you're like, this is because of this one thing that I went through. How have you managed to deal with them in your adult life, apart from the fact that you sat down, wrote a book, and went through everything mentally? How have you been able to adjust with all these challenges?
Human beings change, every after 5, 10 years, you're not the same person because of the environment you're in, the experiences now that you're in. You start building new memories with the people that come along. So the book literally helped me find closure. It helped me forgive myself, forgive my parents, forgive the school that had caused that. So really, I don't think I have anything. And the fact that the experiences that came after those years tried to erase,
That's good.
all
That's good.
the ugliness that had happened. Because as I said, when I joined the day school, things were fun. I would see my dad every day. And oh my God, the joy of seeing dad. There are days he would come to pick us from school and would run towards him with all the love. Now, so eventually, good memories erase the bad. They erase the trauma. And then as an adult, now as a business owner, my focus is on the business and employment and trainings. And so slowly the mind is healed.
I get
But
it.
also being in the right spaces, in the right spiritual spaces, you're able to get to know your true identity, say for us Christians or born agains, if you have Christ as the source of your identity and you understand that you're loved, your past does not determine who you are. Your past is forgiven. So it's about being in a good faith oriented environment that will nurture you spiritually, relationally, and slowly the new memories cover the new and good memories cover the bad.
You renew your
So
mind.
you renew your mind. You get healed. You get closure. And so I told my story. I got closure. I got healing. And so much good has happened as a result. So much good has come into my life and covered the bad. So no, I'm good.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I think you're actually right, because the thing is, you can't change the past. You can acknowledge it, and it might be painful, but if you stay in the past, then you're stuck there. But if you try to see the good that came after these painful memories, then you might be able to find a way forward by saying, okay, I know I went through this, but I am not there anymore. And every day you wake up and you renew your mind in this way.
Yeah.
So Kate, could you please speak to a parent out there who is making this decision? I know there's been a lot of changes over the years in different schools due to strikes and, all these things that happened in the 2000s. There's a lot of student strikes that kind of where students will come up and say, no, we need change. We need change. We want a better life. And so many other schools have tried to adjust, but I also do know that there are some schools that I haven't really spoken to so many people in boarding school. My experience is what I remember. I'm sure you have also not experienced, not sat down to hear someone else's experience. So you'll be like, for me, this is what boarding school is all about. So for a parent out there who is making this decision to take their child to a boarding school because they have no choice, or to a child who is in this situation and they can't get out because their parents have decided that's the best we can do, what kind of advice would you give a young lady who is making a decision? How can they intervene to help this child who is in this space if they feel like they can't take them out of the school to a day school?
And that's very possible. In the book, I mention some of the reasons why children end up in boarding schools.
Yeah.
As a parent, you may not have that any other alternative, that may be the only choice you have, because over and over we've had stories of children being mistreated by their maids at home.
Yeah.
So a parent that has experienced that and has no other relatives to intervene to help take care of the child while they are away at work may not have the alternative of putting the child in day. So they may have to put the child in boarding. But the book explains why, as parents, we need to be involved in what is happening in the child's experiences at the boarding school.
Yes.
It's not right to simply abandon your child to someone else as their caretaker.
Yeah.
That person has their own children to take care of and pay attention to.
Yeah.
They have their own, call them problems that they are facing and going through.
Yeah.
So your particular child that may need more attention than the rest will not get it if the caretaker at the boarding school does not have time or does not realize that this child requires more attention.
Yeah.
So as parents, being involved does help. And how do we get involved? Visitations do help. Unfortunately, most of us only focus on the academics, but life is not all about academics.
Yeah.
The experience of a child has to be all round, How are they taking in the environment? How is the environment, first of all? And as a parent, let's not be so absent that even a few changes that we can recommend to the school are not made,
Yeah.
If you're present, you're coming for visitations, you're coming for PTM meetings. Schools, good schools, like where I was for high school, we used to have visitations every first Sunday of the month. And that really helped because parents would come and a parent may notice there is something wrong happening that the child is experiencing. So every month the parent is seeing their child and the child is able to narrate what has happened to them the previous month. And if there is a wrong habit within the dormitories, within the class, that parents are able to get to, they get to know early, inform the school, and something is done about it and the habit is cut off. So such activities, that's what I saw improve my well-being at school, because at high school I would see dad every month. On top of that, we would have things like class days. So your parents show up at 4 p.m. to check on you. Like, who would not want that? To check on you, to see what you're doing. Then we would have, of course, the drama days and the sports days. So the school was so intentional on keeping a connection between the child and the parent. Because in these school settings, if the administration is too tough and too strict, the students may not communicate in time some of the challenges they are going through. But if they're seeing mom and dad or a guardian that they are free with, they'll quickly report, this happened to me, and interventions will be made to help the child quickly. And it helps the child love the school more.
Yeah, very true.
Because things are in the open. The parents know where the child is. So our involvement as parents is something that is very, very important. But when we abandon the children, they only seeing us at the beginning of the school term, one visitation a term, then at the end, then a short holiday. This short holiday, the father and mother are not even available. They are at work. So who is helping the child? Who is the child communicating to? Who is the child telling their grievances to? Because at school they may not be able to. So as parents, we have the will, we have the capacity, the ability to change our children. It's in us to change the narrative. But if we are not present, our children suffer. And by the time you get to know what happened, it may be too late. I tell a story in the book of a mother that found out that the child had been, unfortunately, abused at the school. And because of the state, she could not afford to take the child out, because she could not afford to have the child with her at home while she's working. So all she came to pick was medication to help the child get better in the same environment. So some of these things are happening, but also like our government needs to be more involved in some of these things. What is happening to these children? What is happening to the children in the care of the school? Other administrators well trained, other teachers well trained as carers of young people. Because the way you care for an adolescent, a teenager in high school is not the same the way you take care of a 6 to 10-year-old. And good enough, some governments, some countries have abolished boarding school before 9 years. So that helps, because indeed before 9 and 10, that child is dependent on who is in their life. But then after that, they are mature enough to make their own decisions. Some of us are so dependent, we only leave the nest when we are 25. Now you imagine a 9-year
after marriage. 30 years, I'm not going anywhere.
So now you imagine a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old being given that, like, you have to take care of yourself. It's just not good.
Too much responsibility.
Too much responsibility.
Yes. You mentioned earlier, before we conclude, about working with your husband. Can you tell us a little bit of how this is going? And maybe, I'm sure there's some women out there who are working with their husbands. How is your experience?
My experience is, it's good. It is good. First of all, you have to be willing to take on the change. This is something we talked about before we got married, because it's something he was looking forward to, but it's not something I had ever experienced or seen from my background, where husbands and wives are working together. And in my head, I'm like, no, that's too much. That's too much of being with one another, too much of seeing each other. You need a break from one another. So that's how I came onto the table. But eventually, when I really got into it, that also requires very good counseling. If you get very good counseling before you get married, these are some of the things that you are prepared for. Because they are family businesses. Now, how do you start a family business when you are just the father or just the mother? It's not a family business. You have to be together, work together, grow it, and then eventually probably get the children on board. But before all that, it's about good counseling. And we had the opportunity to do one offered by Mavuno Church called Ndoa. And to this day, I believe it's what is helping us stay on course, because you are prepared mentally on how to handle some of these things. Submission is key. The Bible says, wives, submit to your husbands, but then husbands also submit to their wives. Eventually, we submit to each other. So it's about having an understanding of you yourself as the individual. Who are you? And once you understand yourself and love yourself, then taking on someone else as your spouse, as your partner, becomes easy. But if you're struggling with your identity, then you're going to fight the other person that is going to come along to work with you, to guide you. That's what I can say.
So that's very true. It does start with you. If you haven't fixed whatever is going on inside here,
your baggage.
You cannot even deal with other people, even if it's not your husband. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ntozi Elizabeth, for making the time to do this. I appreciate your help, and I'm very sure that very many people out there who have gone through this experience. Before I forget, maybe you can tell some people, I got my book directly from you. Where can they find this book? Where can people buy this book from?
People can get the book directly from me. And at the moment, that's how I'm doing it. For anyone interested, I have a few outlets where the books are, but it is such things that help market the book. And if they get in touch with me, either on my number, plus 256 70 8203. That's my number. You can get me there, or on my email address, elizabethbusinge7@gmail.com. Then we can engage and get the book delivered to you.
And hopefully people out there can also write their stories. I also know another friend who I'm hopefully going to talk to her very soon. She's a friend to my sister, and she lost her child, and she went through the same thing that you just explained. I think she probably went through a time where writing this book was the healing, and her purpose has now come out of that. She's now trying to help people with mental health and all these things. She started a whole organization because of this. So I do believe that many people out there, it's not our culture. Like, people do not think so much about writing books and the healing that a book can do to you, because it allows you to reflect and read what you have written, and then see it from the outside, and then have another person read it and critique what you have written and say, here you have shown emotion and done this. But I hope that many people who listen to this can also come out, not even if they don't publish a book. I hope they come out and write their stories and be able to tell them through their own eyes. Thank you once again. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you too.
There was so much to learn from this episode, and I am certain that so many of you have had some memories being refreshed, and some flashbacks. If you have been to boarding school, that's it. And probably some of you might think it's a little bit of exaggeration, maybe because you've never been there, or maybe because your experience was different. But like I said, everyone's story is worthy to be told. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing your time, for giving us this insight into your book. And for those of you who are interested in getting it, you have heard the information. She gave her number and her email address. I just want to mention that the book costs 35,000 Uganda shillings, quite affordable for you to get and learn about some of these experiences. She shared so many stories and a lot of insights. Thank you once again for listening. Thank you. Please share this episode Don't forget to follow on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then on Instagram. Yeah, let's keep these stories flowing and give people space to tell their stories. And the goal is to make East African stories universal. If you made it this far, I love you very much and thank you once again. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. We'll meet again next week, same time, same place. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is SheCentre, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.